Welcome to SealedBeamRally.Team, sponsored by Clark's Corvair Parts. In this episode, we're going to show you how to get your bare Corvair engine looking like this. But it's been over a year since I took the shrouds off, so I have to figure out where they go. Thankfully, we have some resources that should help. I did go through and powder coat all the shrouds I could find, and this is basically laid out in the orientation it's going to be in the car. I know there are a couple out of place, but basically the rear of the car and the front of the car, that should help a little bit in the general orientation. And I also have a small hardware set from Clark's that should help with finding what kind of bolts to put in this thing. As far as putting everything in order, I have the assembly manual from Clark's, and that has really detailed information as far as which way things go, what goes on top of what, where to put the seals, and all that great stuff. I'm going to be leaning really heavily on this, but if I need to, a friend sent me this. This has some images in it as well, and I have the manuals over here, which I don't think have as good of information as the assembly manual, actually. There's one thing I forgot to put on when I put the engine together, and thank you all for reminding me in the comments of the previous videos. These are the lower cylinder baffles. These go underneath the cylinders. On a Volkswagen, you'd have to install these before the head goes on because they would go above the head studs. On the Corvair, I believe they can go above the pushrod tubes and below the head studs. So we should be able to put these on, put our little clips in without taking the heads off. Is it hot in here, or am I just really nervous to pull these head nuts off again? You might remember I didn't always have the best experience doing this, so I don't really want to do it again, but there's no other way to get those pushrod tubes out. I'm not going to remove the whole head. I just want to remove the nuts so I can get these pushrod guides off. I should mention you're not supposed to reuse head nuts, and that's because of the heat and stress that they go through. It can deform them or have issues. So I have not run this engine. It's not had a heat cycle. All of the metal has not had a chance to expand out and put pressure on these nuts. So I do think it's probably safe to reuse these. If you have run your engine, I probably wouldn't do this. And I'm going to take all the push rods out and put them in order here. Be curious if anyone has like a Project Farm style video on whether push rods really need to go back in the same hole, because mother of God, it always struck me as kind of a weird thing. Maybe an urban myth, maybe not. I don't know. I think that's still fine. Whoa. We got all our top nuts out. We got all our bottom nuts removed, and with those came our pushrod guides. Now we can remove the pushrod tubes with nothing obstructing them. There we go. Better leverage. Gets that out. I did write on these passenger side and driver's side just so I don't forget, because they only go in one way, I guess. And this way is not the right way. I put an arrow for going forward and then I just forgot to look at it. So these go on like this, pop up there, and then I did Amsoil HD metal protector on these clips. Clips on real nice and positive there. There's 2 per side. Click, 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 just like a torque wrench. Now we can push all these things back in. They look like they're all in. Well, I actually did the other head first last night, and that went okay. Everything got torqued up, and I joked with my dad that I only get a certain amount of luck during one day, so I didn't want to push it and use up more luck than I had doing 2 heads at once. So we're back today. Let's take a look at the torque sequence here in case you forgot, and we'll go through and do 10 pounds each, then 16 pounds, then 23 pounds. Considering that I'm using lubrication on the threads, that means we take our 27 to 33 foot-pounds, take a quarter off that, and that gives us around that figure. I don't want to torque them up too hard because I know that they are kind of old studs and I didn't replace them all. We are on page 6A52 of the workshop manual. The Chevrolet engineers have put much time and effort into finding the scientifically best way to make you swap sockets as much as possible on your torque wrench. So as we start at 1, then we have to swap a different socket size for 2, then 3 uses the same socket size as 2. From there on, you have to swap the socket one to the other for every single head nut that you do, all 12 of them. So we're going to do that 10 pounds, then 16 pounds, then 23. This figure up here appears to be for non-lubricated threads. Let's get at it. Last one. Done! Got them all! Woo! Alright, throw our little rocker arms back on. We're going to move on to the exhaust, and this is one of the log manifolds. This was painted in engine paint before. Unfortunately, it looks like it's chipping off already, so we may have to redo that. But this goes up first, and then we have some shrouds here. Let's work on the shrouds. There is a thermostat that goes in here that will open and close this flapper valve and allow air out of the engine bay. So what we want to do here is install new bushings. Got these bushings from Clark's, and you just pop them in the end. Both bushings in. Then we got a 1/4" shaft here. This is from Clark's as well. I found that the last one was kind of hard to push through, so I actually just give it a little bit of a bevel. Then I put on a dab of chassis grease just to let it slide through easier. You can take this up here, and you can see it has a kind of a step down here. So you want to make sure that your step down goes in and the other side goes out. Otherwise it won't turn. There we go. So we have one side with a little tab on it. Can you see the tab? That tab here is probably going to be, well, using my deductive reasoning, going to be the head of the shaft here. I'm going to pop this in. Because I got this powder coated, it's kind of tight. Oh! I'm going to throw some Silglide on that shaft so it can slide inside the bushing a little bit easier. Now we're going to pop that through some more. Should line up pretty well. And go through. The other one I had trouble getting it to actually line up here. So if you have to do it, you can set a roll of tape down. We can see that the little bracket here is actuated by the thermostat, and that will allow our air to come out of the car. This attaches to the bigger shroud here, and then we got some brackets for the log manifold, so we can install that when the brackets are nice and cleaned up. They're in the ultrasonic cleaner right now. I'm getting my rivets ready so I can install my thermostat in here, and I realized that as the thermostat goes back, it actually doesn't line up with the bracket on the flapper back here. So I need to move this flapper over to this one so that this bracket will line up with my thermostat, and vice versa. Got our clip-on in there. Kind of goes on both sides of that black bracket. Now, this actually doesn't line up here, does it? So I'm going to go and unscrew this until it lines up with our holes down here. We have these little shield things, and the shield things will go and shield the thermostat from the exhaust, I guess, theoretically. So I'm going to go actually spray this with rust inhibitor, and we will slap this thing in. Do you like Corvairs? Maybe you like stickers too. We now have late model coupe stickers. We have 3 colors available online. These are designed and illustrated by me. They are produced in the USA, and they are weather safe. Go check out SealedBeamRally.Team. I am adding more stickers all the time, and hope to have an FC one out soon too. I received my order from Clark's, and that was a pack of 6 exhaust packings. You need to replace these when you put the manifolds back on. So we got those here. We got the little hold down bracket things, and we got the French washers, they call them in the manual. I already sprayed all the bracket stuff in the washers with the Amsoil HD metal protector. I use this stuff a lot. I'm not sponsored by them, but I like it. And it leaves a coating on there so that salt and road gunk doesn't get on stuff. This is kind of a pain in the dick. So what you have to do is hold the whole manifold up, and as you hold the manifold up, you have to install these little keepers, you have to install the washers, you have to install the nuts, and then it all kind of hangs together as one. I also noticed that the manifolds want to interact with the rear shrouds here, so I put those on. They're kind of loose right now, but they should be okay. Let's see if we can put our packings up here and let them stick. Oh yeah, sticking just fine. Kind of set our manifold up here. It goes backward compared to most vehicles. I'm going to put the middle one on, and we'll just let it hang off that for now. Next thing to go on will be the head temperature sensor. Here's the old one. Pretty nasty, bent over. I don't know. I don't trust it. Got a new one from Clark's. Looks shiny. Let's put it in. It's supposed to put NIC's compound on the threads and torque to 10 to 15 pounds. Goes right under the head here. There we go. Just as I torqued that up, I thought, why is there no washer there? Well, I looked at the old one, and there is a washer on there. So I cleaned this up. It's a copper washer. This one looks perfect. I mean, it looks brand new. So I'm going to take that thing off, put the washer on, and then put it back on so I don't have a huge oil leak when I start the engine the first time. Got it done. I forgot to mention, when you're putting the front shrouds on here, there is a flange along the crankcase that the flange on the shroud interacts with. So there's a double flange on the shroud, and that's supposed to kind of straddle that rib on the crankcase. Make sure that goes in, because it's really easy to miss and it won't fit right. Well, the next thing to put on, I think, is the lower shrouds here, and I realized that there's a gasket that goes along this edge. I found the receipt for the gasket. I know I bought it from Clark's, and I probably bought it a year ago. I have no idea where it went. I've probably reorganized the shop like 4 or 5 times since then. So one of the reasons this video is taking a little bit longer to put out is that I have to go and find all the parts that I bought. So I apologize about that. I located the parts. I bought them 6 months ago. Let's go install them. I'm trying to take it easy so I don't miss anything. Remember this little thing on the driver's side lower shroud? Well, this connects to the oil cooler, so we have to install the oil cooler before we can go to the lower shroud. Here's where the oil cooler mounts on the back of the engine on the driver's side. We have the little 2 seals to go here. I got the Viton ones at Clark's, and they just pop in to those holes. Alright, and then there's only 1 bolt for that oil cooler. I got this shroud on as well, and that, again, like the front one, does interact with the rib on the crankcase, so you want to make sure that that is kind of straddling that rib. Thank you to the viewer who sent me this oil cooler. It has many, many more fins than the one that was on the car already. So I'm going to throw this on. Got a new bolt and washer. And why are the bolt and washer too short? Oh man, screw me. Okay, so the old bolt goes all the way in. The new one with this is the old oil cooler, the 3-fin, and we got the new, what is this, like a 9-fin, and the bolt does not make it all the way through. So I guess I have to go to Ace again and get another bolt. Jeez. I can't believe this crap. Okay. I've been trying to get more organized around the shop, and my dad gave me this as a gift recently. It is a thread gauge, so I can go with any bolt, basically, and check that, yes, it is a 3/8/16 bolt. It needs to be 3.5 inches long. And then, got a bunch of these organizers, and these kind of a 2-sided thing. so you can put all your bolts in these. We're going to also build a rolling work cart for all these to sit in, and I'm going to have like 24 of them, I think. So that will hold all my common hardware that I might need at, let's say, at 10:30 on a Sunday night, and not have to go into the hardware store to get that stuff. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on that. I'm not sure if we'll record it, but if you want to see it, we'll record it. Remember this thing I lost earlier? Well, this is a Clark's multi-kit for the shroud seals. Now, it's one part number, you get everything that you need for the shroud seals. This is one of the cool parts we're going to put in right now and see how it goes. I'm kind of itching to stick it onto something. I do want to acknowledge they have the seals for the heater adapter things, and then it comes with a seal for the rear shroud, the rear lower shroud under the skid plate. These ones go along the insides of the lower shrouds here, and it just comes with, you know, everything. So these ones are really cool looking, and I dig their whole vibe. So I'm gonna throw this one on just to feel better about myself that I got the wrong size bolt. All right, and stick that on. Goes up to the edge. Looks pretty good. That one goes out, and some of these edges are pretty thin. This gives it a nice flat piece to press up against. And take this long stuff, and we got to put this along the edge here. Looks like I cut it a little bit short. All right. Ta-da! 5 pounds is what it calls for. It did stick out further than I wanted it to, but I think it'll be okay. I went to go get my Ansoil HD metal protector, which I use to inhibit rust on the thermostat assembly here, and I was going to spray these little screws inside. Can't find it, so I'm going to have to pop this flap open and spray them in there later. I was also going to spray my little clips, these little U-clips that go up here. So I will have to spray those later as well, but we'll pop those on here. These will allow us to attach the oil cooler to the top of the driver's side shroud. And these are for a number 10 screw size, and I matched them against parts car version. Always good to have those extra pieces laying around if you have access to a parts car. Otherwise, there's some guy on YouTube that says this stuff. I don't know. I know that Clark's has these. If you're doing an order there, it might be worth just getting the right stuff from them. But your local auto parts store also has these. I found that Napa is pretty good at the weird hardware stuff. I didn't have as much luck with O'Reilly's on it, or Advance. But I do have these powder coated, so they should be a little bit more durable when sliding these things on, but it still makes me kind of pucker up a little bit. Let's take this thing over and slide it on. I apologize that my filming position is kind of limited here. Doing what I can. Let's raise this thing up. Little anti-seize on a steel bolt never hurt when it's going into aluminum. Or steel for that matter. I should mention I found no indication that these front shrouds need any kind of seal on them. But the manual does say that you're supposed to go with certain specifications for minimum or for maximum gap, so you don't want air gaps in this stuff. And it says if you have air gaps, you obviously are not going to get optimal cooling, so something to keep an eye on. Why can't I get these in? I was having trouble lining up these two bolts down here, and I realized that the captive nuts are actually into this piece, this shroud here. So I loosened the shroud up. 2 bolts, this one, big one here, and now I can get everything lined up well enough to shove that one in, and that works. So everything starts in there, everything tightens up, and we're off to the races. Gonna call that done. Let's move over to the other side. Got all those little quarter 21s in, and I thought I was done, but I realized I never put in the little screws for the oil cooler, and I also forgot this little guy. This thing is so tiny, it's taken a 5/16 socket, and I'm putting it on a deep socket with a speed wrench on it just so I can get this in the little tiny crevice it goes in. You'd have to stick your nose in pretty far to see this one, but it is... Oh no. We're going to put the screw in there. It should hold it upside down like a DQ Blizzard. Alright. And she's in. Get that plastic waste out of there. We'll move on to the oil cooler up here. I realized I didn't put these in either. The clip here is pretty far off from where it's supposed to be. I can't stick a screw in there. Hey, look at that. Just sticking that screw in sideways and tightening it down was enough to bring that tab in just a little bit. Got a little bit of a gap here still. I'm not too worried about it. The air coming out of there has already gone through the oil cooler, done its job, and it would probably go out this gap in the rear shroud thermostat area anyway. I'm gonna cruise right into the next side here. See if I can get this to go easier. How do we do this? It's like an adult Lego set. How does it all go together? Oh, anti-seize everywhere. Okay. Time to install the terrible one on this side. Going in? I think you're going in. Sweet. Not sure what that hole goes to, but I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. Maybe it's too late. We'll see. You may have noticed the driver's side thermostat door is open a little bit and the passenger one is closed. The manual says that you're supposed to adjust those after you get them on the car, so I'm not going to worry about it yet. We'll probably have to get the engine hot and then watch those as they open and close. It's getting a little late, but I feel like I'm on a roll, so I'm going to do a little bit more before I go to bed. These are the heater outlets. These go to the heater hoses into the cabin, and I'm going to put my little seal on here. This came in that multi-kit. I already did the other one, and I found that the seals on these, you might need to get a knife in the edge here just to get the backing off, because they're cut really tight there. Once you get that started, it comes off pretty easy. It's just, getting it started can be a little challenging. Goes on there. Let's see. It's a little bit crooked, but it's gonna have to be there because it's stuck on. All right, we're gonna put this thing on here. It's a nice tight fit on there, so I think this is obviously one of the higher priority ones to get right if you're wanting heat out of your car, and I definitely want heat out of this thing. Again, I do plan to dry this thing in the winter pretty regularly. The ones that go in here are tiny. They're 1024s, and these ones are 1/2 inch long. I decided the 1/2 inch should be easier to put in than the shorter ones because it's a little easier to start them when they're not sticking so far in. I gotta say, this thing is starting to look like a real Corvair engine now. I'm pretty excited about it. I would love to get this thing done and get a video out to you this weekend. It is currently Wednesday. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, I'm going to compete with Gavin from Red Hen Racing at the Son of Snowdrift TSD Rally in the Detroit region. So we're headed out on Friday morning. I gotta go and pack tomorrow night. We'll get this thing out to you as soon as we can. I don't have all that much to do, and we're doing my best here, but it is winter time and I'm trying to enjoy every little bit of it while we have it. I'll see you next time after this weekend, and we'll finish this thing up.
Can't even see. He blends in. He's camouflaged now.
Nature is beautiful. Sir, you can't park there.
Can't park there.
Move it.
Can't park there. Chevy Cruise. Oh, in the guardrail. You have fucked up. You have fucked this all the way up, my guy. This is fun. We're having fun. You cannot fucking park there.
No.
You can't.
What?
He spilled his ladders.
Wait now.
Damn. nice if Illinois just magically had not snow.
I got the engine off the rear engine stand now, so we're free to work around the rear end here. We got the skid plate on the back. That has to be clearance to fit the new oil pump. In addition to the clearancing for the new high-capacity oil pump, I am also going to add some mounts for a real skid plate because this thing ain't going to cut it. I'm going to be doing some gravel driving, some gravel rally stuff this year, and I got a big sheet of 3/16 inch aluminum that is going to be mounting underneath the whole drivetrain here, so I'll have some actual protection against rock hits and scrapes and stuff like that. So I need to make sure that this can accept a couple bolts here, and we can be able to pull that real skid plate off easily without too much trouble. When I pulled the rear engine mount bracket off, these two studs came out. So that was pretty annoying. I put them back in with Loctite 271, but I couldn't kind of screw them all the way in to torque them, so I'm hoping they set up where they are and stay there so I don't have to worry about it. We're going to put a little bit of grease on the bottom of our oil pump here, and then hold this up where it's supposed to slide in. Try to get a good idea of where it's touching. Now, since I know that we have a flange right here, I can measure back from this flange surface to that bolt, find out where that's going to be. I know that Clark's included instructions on how to do this, but I lost them. So we're going to reconstruct what that's supposed to be, drill a hole there to clearance that, and then probably put a patch on the bottom, either a patch or just mount that bigger skid plate. 1.35 looks like about the distance we want. Approximately right here. Grease mark is here. My measured mark is here, so I think we can go between these two. That should get us pretty close. And doesn't really matter where exactly it is. That goes on like that, but then our little hooks don't hook into the crankcase by the oil pan. So I'm going to get it just hanging off the studs here, and we can see if we can push this thing up in the front end. Welcome to SealedBeamRally.Team. In this episode we do everything twice. Alright, now that we got everything off, let's see if we can put this thing back on. Not really. Nope. Looks like the oil pump here is taking up a little more space than I thought it was. I mean, this thing wants the whole bottom of the skid plate cut out. Let's do it. You know, I wish I could find the instructions for this because it's been a while since I installed the oil pump, and for whatever reason I thought it was just like drilling a hole like this. I thought the oil pump was going to be a pretty easy upgrade here, and it's turning out to be maybe not so easy. When I put this on, the bottom is now clearing. It's all here. I can touch it. It only sticks out like that much. It's not that bad. And I just had to cut the hole there. I'm going to put a skid plate on anyway. It doesn't matter. But the problem I'm having here is that the captive nut that goes in here, it holds this shroud on. Captive nut is actually touching. You can see where I put my marker grease. It's touching the oil pump. So I have to do something with that nut. Brought my dad up here because I had to bang my brain against somebody else's brain for a little bit here, and we think that the best solution right now is I can take this, just cut the captive nut off completely, put a bolt in there that sticks through, tack the bolt on, and then grind that bolt head off, and that should get us pretty close. This does not take much torque. It's not a high strength thing. I just need something there that I can bolt to. Unfortunately, because of the way that they stamped this, I'm not able to move the bolt over or move the nut over or something like that. So I think I've solved this problem here. I did weld in some bolts on the back side, I had to grind down the one really far. It's got some marker grease on it, but yeah, it's almost gone, but it's still attached, and these don't take very much torque. So thankfully the foam seems to survive the welding to some extent, and I think it'll still work. Let's wipe that stuff off. Put this thing on, and it fits. Next thing I'm going to do here is go in here with a couple big nuts. We're going to do some captive nuts on here, and those will attach to the real skid plate, and we will kind of leave this hole open. I don't know what to do with that. It sticks out a little bit, so I'm not going to try to figure something out for that. I'm just going to leave it. Here we go. We got it painted. We got two studs here. The stud on this side is ground almost flat, and we have two captive nuts here for the future real rally skid plate in here. I think it's time to slap this thing on. Well, that went up to 7 foot-pounds pretty easy. We got our new kind of studs here. All I gotta do is put the little piece of foam back on because that did not survive the welding. We'll put our rear shroud on there. Probably put some flange nuts on that to keep it in place instead of the original bolts. And now we can reinstall the exhaust shrouds here and get back to the place I was before I tried to put this skid plate on. I did notice that Clark's instructions say there's supposed to be a seal between this shroud and the crankcase. It's too much work to take that exhaust off, so I'm going to leave it the way it is, and we'll see if we have a problem. If I have a problem, I can go back in and fix it later. Up top we have a PCV pipe. This has to go in, so I went to the hardware store, picked up an O-ring for it. I got 2 O-rings, and this one seemed to fit better. So that goes in here, and then we have a little bracket that I painted up, and I put a 3/4 inch 3/8/16 bolt on that. So we're going to throw some anti-seize on that bolt real quick, and we'll throw it in. Feels pretty tight. Now we have the blower up here, and this has got to go on. So I got that powder coated as well. I got new bolts for it. We're going to put those in a precarious location here so they fall off, and I have to go fish them out of a shroud. That sounds like the most fun way to do it. I'm not sure about the heads on these. They seem kind of big for the pulley, but we'll see if it fits on here. You also have a little bit of a clearance concern, I guess I would say, with the powder coating on this and the painting on the hub of the thing there. Well, I've had an absolute poop of a time trying to get these screws in here, so I'm going to try to press this thing down without the pulley on it, then come back afterward to do a final install on the bolts. Hopefully that way it'll draw this down over the flange, and we won't have to fight it going off kilter and then not having the clearance for those clearance for the socket. Alright, she spins true. I can go back these bolts off now and put the pulley on the top, and then we'll go and tighten that down. Hopefully these bolts fit in the pulley. Not too confident about that. This one has to push on too. Must be a tolerance issue with the powder coating. That kind of sucks. Well, I'll tell you what, these bolts that I bought are not going to work. I just checked the ramp side, looked at the manual, and these have way too big a head. So looks like I'm off to Clark's again to get the correct bolts for that. Fortunately, the fan here is set on. It's pressed onto that hub, so it's not going to move, and I don't have to worry about the stuff falling off just now. So we're going to leave 2 bolts in just to hold it there, make sure it's not going to move, and I will go ahead with the rest of the install here. Not a whole lot left to put on. We have that top shroud here. This one goes on the very back, and I have to reorder that piece of foam along with the blower bolts. We also have some other pieces here. This kind of clamps in the this piece of rubber. These strips of rubber actually go along these side panels, and these kind of hang out right on the side of the engine here, and they interface with the engine bay in the car. We're going to do those in a future episode, so let's just put this top housing on, and we will get to look at that and really admire the engine. Beautiful. This little cover here goes on the oil cooler area. If you'd like to see me install these and put all those pesky little stainless staples in here, like and subscribe. I will be putting those up hopefully in the next couple weeks. In the meantime, there are a couple things that I'm not quite satisfied with. A couple things I forgot. First thing is I put that head temp sensor in here and I forgot to put the plug onto it. So the wire needs to be fed through there. I don't know if I'm going to take this whole shroud off for the second time or if I want to try to shove my hand inside the thermostat baffle there. Remains to be seen. Another one, of course I'm missing these, but we also have to finish up getting a couple bolts in here and figuring out what size bolts go in there, but I have a big pile of bolts, I can go find them. We have to get this blower situation sorted. I'm going to get new bolts on there that actually fit in the hole. That should work better. We have to put all our seals in here, put our PCV thing in, and I need to have this painted. Otherwise, what else? These little spark plug wire holders have a rubberized coating on them, and I neglected to pull the rubberized coating off before I got it powder coated. So I may have to figure out a way to recoat those. I don't know what if I do use Plastidip or what I'm going to do for that, but that's something else to take a look at in the future. Otherwise, I think we're pretty much where I want to be. If you want to watch me install these side shrouds on here and put all these pesky stainless staples in, like and subscribe. I should be posting that in the next couple weeks. Otherwise, there are some things that I'm not quite satisfied with this shroud situation so far. The biggest thing probably is that I put a head temp sensor in the head before I put the shroud on, and then I forgot to run the wire for it. So we have an empty hole here. We have no wire there. I don't know if I want to take the shroud off or try to reach in the baffle, but just a real bummer. Second thing, I have a couple pieces of foam left. I think I was supposed to put some on the front shrouds that go to the heater ducts. They seem like they're sealing pretty well, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I have that if I need it in the future. Next, we talked about the pulley up here. I'm going to get some new bolts for that, and we'll get that all pressed in and tightened up in the future. We got to get our little seals in all the spark plug holes, and I want to paint this and deal with the PCV. I got a big hole in the back, in the front here that I don't know what to do with. So we got plenty of work to do here, but the main things are done. I think just getting all the shrouds on makes me feel so much better about the engine and the restoration progress here. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thanks to Clark's Corvair Parts for sponsoring this video and this project. And I will see you next time. Press on.